So welcome everybody. This is the Microsoft 365 Power Platform community call happening every single Tuesday, 8 a.m. Pacific time, except for the upcoming summer break. It is March. Summer is coming in Northern Hemisphere. It's a good thing to call that out as well because it's winter time coming actually in Southern Hemisphere. But we are already getting ready a bit on the summer period. So we will be out at least July and half or full August with this call. So it's good to be aware of that. But typically every single Tuesday, 8 a.m. Pacific time. And in this call, we always have Microsoft speakers. And that means product managers, engineers, cloud advocates, and so on, who are showing you how things have been designed or built or intended to be used, or what they built with their customers or within their projects. Now, this week, we have, again, 3 demos coming up. We'll start with Waldek, who's going to talk about extending Copilot for Microsoft 365, ingest local Microsoft Graph Docs content using C# and .NET. Really, really interesting scenario for ingesting data directly to the Microsoft 365. Then Marc Windle is going to follow up on Populate custom metadata on SharePoint Embedded files using AI processing. Really, really cool as well. And then Daniel is the last one, but definitely not the least, who's going to be talking about creating a plugin for Copilot for Microsoft 365 with Microsoft Copilot Studio. So really, really cool low code or no code option for modifying the Copilot for Microsoft 365. So 2 topics on Copilot for Microsoft 365. That seems to be a really, 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 really hot topic as it is within Microsoft as well. Now, excellent. Let's get actually moving on things. So we have a lot of assets available for you to get started within the Microsoft 365 for Power Platform. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. We publish at least 1 video within every single day. Quite often, actually, it's 2 every single business day. There's a lot of content getting published over there on a weekly basis. We have our LinkedIn group and actually our LinkedIn page nowadays for discussions and updates and all of that. So check us out in LinkedIn. A lot of open source assets available, but as it might be a bit difficult to find the relevant sample for you, we have those sample galleries, which makes it super easy to stay up to date on the latest samples from Microsoft and from community. And if you're wondering that there's too many URLs to remember, no, actually it's all through one URL. AKMS Community Home is where you find all of the assets, including details on the community calls. So we have quite a few of these community calls. You're in one of them, so kind of aware of them, hopefully. But we have the Tuesday one. On top of that, we have the Power Platform monthly one and Office Add-ins monthly one, and then we have the bi-weekly series happening on every single Thursday, 7 a.m. Pacific time, with certain exceptions. I'm not going to go too much details why, for example, this week's call is on 8 a.m. Pacific time, but it is actually normal time in Europe. It's complicated because of time zones and everything else moving. After this week, we are again aligned between US and Europe. So all of the meetings are aligning starting from next week, which is good. It's really, really interesting how they actually work during these weird weeks when US is in a different time zone versus Europe, or in the summertime and Europe is not. Now, you can download recurrent invites from the community calls URL, and you can always get the agendas for upcoming calls from AKMS Community Meetup. Great location to sign up. It's completely free, and you will get an email whenever we will publish the agendas for this course, so you know what's coming up. And you know, do you want to check the call live, or do you want to check the recording afterwards from the YouTube? Now, for a lot of those calls, we actually welcome you to present. Super popular thing. We're right now booking already end of May and June. So a lot of volunteers from MVPs and community signing up for these demos. Thank you for that, because you really, we want to learn from those people who are building experiences on top of Microsoft 365 and Power Platform. You can simply sign up at AKMS Community Request Demo, and then we will contact you and get you scheduled on the suitable time based on your availability. Now, we have a lot of assets available on Microsoft 365. The Microsoft 365 developer program has been unfortunately in pause, and for now, we'll get some updates on this one. We just agreed on doing one more video on that one within the last hour, related on explaining the different options over there and what's the situation. We do have a lot of free assets available from a learning perspective, so a lot of learning modules from the Microsoft Learn, whenever you have a tenant which you can play with. Now we have a lot of shows available for you to take advantage as well. So we have the Microsoft 365 Power Platform shows, Microsoft 365 PMP Weekly, hosted by yours truly and Waldek Mastykarz. Then we have the bi-weekly awesome show on Mondays at Microsoft with Caruana Gatimo and Heather. And then we have the Microsoft 365 Developer Podcast. And I keep on hearing rumors that it might be coming back. Maybe not. Maybe yes. Maybe not. We'll follow up on do we need to update that list. Now, we do have a lot of samples available, like mentioned. I think we're hitting 1900 pretty soon. And I would just notice today a few samples and locations which are not automatically gathered. So we need to actually get them surfaced in this location as well. But if you go AKMS community samples, you'll find so many cool samples and solutions available which you can take advantage. So rather than building stuff from scratch and trying to figure out things, go to this location, find a sample, have a look on it, and be like, oh, that's how they're implementing all of these details. Now, if you're not super familiar on finding the sample and then getting redirected on a GitHub, you might be wondering, how would I do this? How do I know how this works? But that's why we have Sharing is Caring initiative, and I'm super pleased to have David Warner directly from LA to cover up this slide and the following slide.
Oh, sorry, is that my cue? Well, yeah. Okay, everybody, yes. Thank you for having me back, Vesa. So I'm excited to be back, everybody. Thank you so much for your patience. Sharing is Caring is alive and well, and it's alive, but we're going to get it back to well, and it is here to provide you hands-on guidance. That's the whole point of it. So in a safe space, not recorded environment, we are able to collaborate, work together, ask any and all questions that you would like to ask about how to contribute, how to get involved in the community, and we will be sure to provide you with all that know-how and work together in doing it. So keep an eye out, ak.ms/sharing is caring. We do promise that we will get those schedules back up now that I'm ramping back up from being out for medical leave for a bit. But do definitely also get registered for the recognition program, because that is definitely alive and well. You'll see some badges coming out this week across all of our platforms and across all of our projects. So please do get opted in. We have well over 1,000 now. We are absolutely renewing our relationship with Credly. So this is something that we're invested in and going to be ongoing for a long, long time. So opt in, ak.ms/community/recognition, absolutely free. Start earning those badges. Reach out if you have any questions. Vesa, back to you in the Finland studios. Now with
Excellent,
fiber.
thank you, LA. Back to the fiber. Yes, indeed. Now let's move in and have a quick recap on all of the events. So first of all, April 13th, coming up pretty soon, 5 weeks from now, Microsoft 365 Community Conference. All the latest on Microsoft 365 Copilot, AI stuff, Microsoft Teams, Viva, SharePoint, OneDrive, Power Platform stuff as well. Copilot Studio is being covered, and a lot of other stuff there. Check out the agenda and speakers and all of the details on the workshops and all of that at AKMS. Sorry, not AKMS, at m365conf.com. We also have the European Collaboration Summit coming up in 14th to 16th of May. Now, this will run out of seats pretty soon. So I just heard from the organizers, because I'm one of the people helping there on the content side, that we're looking into running out of seats within the ECS relatively soon. So if you really want to be there on Wiesbaden and you want to be there as part of those 3,000 people who will be in this conference, please go and at collabsummit.eu and check the details over there. Now, TechCon 365 is happening this year as well. Used to be known as EduCon 365. It's happening in Seattle, DC, and Dallas, starting from June 3rd at Seattle. Super cool events as well. A lot of workshops and sessions. And then in September, we have also the Power Platform Conference happening on September 18th to 20 and 2024. Really cool venue again in MGM in Las Vegas. On top of these big events, we also have a lot of community events coming up that's not February, March. That's actually March, April, and even March, April. We should update the slides. Wow! But if you go to communitydays.org, you can actually find the full list of different events, smaller events and bigger events, which are happening all around the world, which you can take advantage. Some of these have a paid, some of them might be paid, most of them are free, and some of them might be hybrid. Some of them are in person. So please do check out what's happening close to you as well. Now, something which is happening actually pretty soon as well is the Dev Proxy and Microsoft Learn focus group. Do we have Gary on this call to cover this one?
We do, yeah. Hopefully you can hear me. My mic
Oh,
is
good.
a bit crazy.
Yes.
All good.
Yep.
Fantastic. Yeah, thanks, Vesa. So, yeah, if you are a developer, we want your help. Basically, we're running an experiment. We want to see if, well, could you complete a Microsoft 365 Learn module without actually needing a Microsoft 365 tenant? So to answer that question, we're running several focus groups in the coming weeks, and we invite you to try a new way of learning and just share your feedback with us. So all we ask is 30 minutes of your time. We've got 4 focus groups taking place this week. So 2 this week, 2 next week. If you're interested, please go to the aka.ms link and register, and we would love to see you and get your feedback.
Excellent, really, really cool. Please take advantage of this one, and your feedback is definitely welcome on all of the cool stuff what Cloud Advocates are doing, or what we're doing as a Microsoft in general. Now, on the news side, a lot of cool stuff happening again last week. A lot of news. We're not going to cover all of this, but there's the news for the developer side, platform side, end user side, administrator side, and Power Platform and N365 side up. I know that David is copy pasting the link of news in the chat, so that should be coming up in any second within over there if we want to catch up on all the latest things which are happening across all of the different blogs within Microsoft 365 Power Platform side. Now, then before we go to the actual, not that direction, another direction. No, wrong direction still. Let me go here. Before we go to the actual stars of today, we're going to do a group photo with those who are willing to enable the video. I will try this. Hopefully it doesn't get too pixelated. It is a bit pixelated, but that was already before I enabled my camera, so maybe I'm not the reason for it. But we have 50 seats in a room. Let's wait for a while. It is a bit 8-digit again today, like it was last week, unfortunately. Might be something which is happening on server side and not caused by my internet connectivity. This is actually what we're seeing here is a server side live feed which the recording bot is capturing. So it's not related on my computer, actually, in this case.
Yeah, I think something's going on with Teams a little bit, because I sent the news link and it is still sending all of the news links. So something's going on.
Well, at least we can see people. We can see
too much news.
There are humans here.
Too much news.
Too much news. Extra. Now, we do have 50 seats in a room. I guess it's time to start recording. I will put the recording on. Let's do some hand waving. We can recognize people there still. And there's Fabian on the top row. Excellent. We'll grab a GIF animation on that one and share it in the social media. Thanks, everybody, for joining once again. Sorry for the small technical issues which Teams seems to be having. We're not super sharp today, but we're getting there. We're getting there. Hopefully, it will be better again next time. But let's then go to the actual stars of today, right on the schedule. So we have some flexibility as we move along. Waldek is going to start with extending Copilot for Microsoft 365. Then we move to Marc and then to Daniel. And I can see Waldek sharing the screen already. So that's a great start. Do we have audio?
Perfect. Excellent.
And we have an audio.
All right.
Excellent. Take it away.
This time around, I will not show a single slide. So I hope you will enjoy it. I hope you will stay along for a ride. As we see how the idea of bringing your own content to Microsoft 365 work in practice. Because we all know, right, that in our work, we use content from all kinds of applications and systems in our org. Like, yes, we've got files, we've got emails, meetings, but there's also other things that we store as well. Like, think about contracts, manuals, policies, and all of that. And that is also an important part of our work too, right? To be able to access that info. So to illustrate that, I brought with me a friend, a Copilot, right? And let's see how we could use that to be able to learn, to find answers to the questions that we need. In my example, I'm a dev, so I'm going to ask it a few things about the things that I do in my work, like for example, to work with Microsoft Graph API. But again, like the use case can be anything, any kind of content that you've got in your work, that you use in your work, and that you would like to learn about, right? So let's start. Let's start with a simple prompt, like how can I create a graph client, right? So how to create a graph client, meaning like how can I connect, in other words, to Microsoft Graph from my app? I'm building an app. I want to connect to Microsoft Graph. How do I create a client that allows me to connect to it? And let's hope that that works, because what's really cool about working with AI is that you never know what answer you will get back, right? Like one time it might be totally on par, and the other one it might be totally off. So it's really interesting always to see whether the demo is going to follow along the way I intended it to, or will we go on a sidetrack and I will need to see if I can explain it. All right, so we're getting an answer back, and let's see if that's coming from the content that I kind of brought along with me, or is that like LLM trying to use everything that it already knows based on the resources that we use to kind of train the model, right? So that takes a moment as it goes through the resources and finds the data, builds the answer. But that's also really cool that you get the answer in a paragraph of text. Like you're not just having a link or a page with links and results and 8 out of 10 are ads. No, this is just basically an answer to the question that you asked, compiled from all the data that Copilot from Microsoft 365 can answer. And that spans both, all the content that you've got in Microsoft 365, as well everything else that you bring along for it to be able to tap into. So I hope that we're getting close to the end, I think, and I'm seeing kind of few references along the way. So let's see if the answer that we'll get back is the answer that we need. And I think it is on par. Okay, so we've got the answer, and I believe it's right. What's really interesting is that part here, the references. So if we open it up, we're seeing here 2 links, and the fact that they are the references, so one, we've got the references, and the icons here indicate that this is an external source, right? So we can open it up, like we'll have the exact quote, basically, that proves that the answer that we got is really the answer that we're after, and that it's coming from a source, that it's not a made-up thing out of thin air, right? So this proves that this content, the answer that we having, is coming from a content that is ingested to Copilot from Microsoft 365, right? So that is cool. All right, let's go on. Let's ask another thing. One thing that we all wonder about is, how do we get a token? Because in all samples, we get like, okay, paste a token here. What's a token? Where do I get one from? Right? So how to get an access token for a .NET graph client, because again, today we're talking about building a .NET app, right? Like you want to build a graph connector using .NET to ingest external content to Microsoft 365, right? So let's see if Copilot from Microsoft 365 will be able to tell us like how to create or how to get a token that we can use in our app. So let's see if we'll get an answer to that in a minute or two. And if it's going to work too slow, like we can speed it up. That's actually going pretty good. It's actually going pretty good. All right, so what do we have here? You need to go to the authentication provider guide. So apparently there are multiple options. And then based on the approach you choose, you'll kind of be able to get a token that you can use that your app will then use to authenticate to Microsoft 365. Cool. Let's see if will it give us the actual code. Will it give us the actual code? Let's see. We're almost there. I think we will have like few more lines of the answer, right? So it's still very much explaining like the mechanics of it, which is also great, right? So it also gives you some background info about the things you asked, just so that you can understand it some more. Let's see the full answer. Okay, and again, what's really, really cool is, again, we've got the reference. So it again proves that it didn't make it up. It's coming back again with the content that we ingested, and which we can also browse, right? So from here, we can also go to the pages that we've got here and see it basically where the content is coming from. Okay, let's do the final thing. I really want to see some code. So let's make our question a bit more elaborate. Like, okay, I'm using this client ID and secret for an app. So I'm explaining it a little bit more what I'm doing here. I want Copilot to give me kind of the code that it would do, or that I would have to use in my app, so that I can do auth, because again, auth is like we typically know, right? Like really the hardest part about it all. So let's see if with this more elaborate question that I asked, if I will be able to get the exact code that I need to use in my app, right, to connect to Microsoft Graph and to be able to interact with it and all the data and insights that it offers. Okay, so here we say, okay, so I need to use client credential flow, which is right because I'm using client ID and secret, right? And it's suitable for a daemon app, for app only, without user interaction, which is again right because we want to have app only access to Microsoft Graph. So far, so good. All right, we then need applications client ID and secret to pass it to the Microsoft Identity Platform. And then we will get back an access token that we can use to call Microsoft Graph. And here's some code that we're getting back, right? And we need to use apparently something called confidential client application builder with client secret authority. That's interesting. I haven't seen that code before. So let's see if we just stumble upon something new that we haven't know about yet, or maybe not. As you can see at the bottom here, there's not a single reference included. And that can make you already think, is this code true? I think it isn't, right? Like if, as far as I can tell from the top of my head, there is no such thing as confidential client application builder, create with client secret. Like this is made up stuff. So it only proves, right, that like for things that we ingested the content in, it's pretty good. It can pretty accurately give the answer, like use the content that we bring in to give us the answers that we need. But when the content lacks, it will try to do its best with the caveat that at time it might not work. So how does it work? How did I bring external stuff, and like in this case, the docs for the Microsoft Graph API and the SDKs to Microsoft 365 to get these answers? Well, what I've done is I've built a connector. I've built a Microsoft Graph connector, which is kind of the vehicle for you to bring any external content you've got into Microsoft 365. And with that, the content you ingest is going to appear in a few experiences, right? Like you've just seen it appear in Copilot for Microsoft 365. It will also appear in search, right? So in here, you can search for a Graph client. And in here in search, you will get the results. And again, like you can see that the icon indicates that it is an external source, title, and here you have the link to the actual docs that live on MS Learn. But the cool thing is you can now search from one single place, being Microsoft 365, across all your org, and then you will be able to find the content that you need from a single place without having to worry about which system it's stored in and so forth and so on. So this is really great. So this is kind of the benefit that you get when you build a connector. You bring the external content to Microsoft 365 and then ingest it. And with that, you get a centralized access to it, including the benefit that it's going to work with AI and LLM, right? So the way a connector works, it's actually a piece of code that runs. You use it, it has kind of like three jobs. It connects to your external schema or external system, brings in the content, changes its shape, and loads it into to Microsoft 365 using the Microsoft Graph, right? And when you think about that, you need to have three elements. Like you need to have a connection, which is basically ID, name, description. And this is also the important part, because LLM, like Copilot for Microsoft 365, is going to use it to try to understand what kind of info are you trying to ask and what is kind of the relevant source that I could use to find it, right? So be sure that you will get these two parts right, and also pay some attention to it, right? Like be sure that you explain what that a connection is about, right? So one. Then another thing that you will need is schema. So these are all the different properties that you want to keep track along with the content you ingest. You might have title, description, URL, icon URL, author, modified. Like you can keep track of all kinds of stuff. From the point of view of Copilot for Microsoft 365, there's like one thing you need to keep in mind: the labels, right? There are three labels. And intentionally on a screen, you're seeing only two. We will get back to that. You need to have at least three labels for the content to properly show up in Copilot for Microsoft 365. Title, URL, and the icon URL, right? Because with these, Copilot will be able to make the references and show the links to the original source. right? So that's why you need all of that. Once you have it, the final part is to run the code. And again, it's just a piece of code that you run. You can run it on local box. You can run it on Azure. It can be a scheduled function. It can be a container, whatever you want. It's up to you how you want to instrument and operate this. In this case, let me, because I created the connection already, right? So let me show you how that would actually work without running it. So in this case, I'm also going to use dev proxy, which allows me to check that all of my codes works without actually having to connect to a tenant. And that is a really great and easy way for me to speed up a development flow and have the confidence that whatever I will give to admins and put in production is going to work. So in this case, I will start with as if I created a connection and created schema, okay? So in this case, I am creating the connection, and let's see if that is going through. Something is going on. Perfect. We have activity. Houston, we have activity. Connection was created, done. Schema is being created in progress. So we're going to wait. We waited again, and we're done. Again, we simulated all of this. From the connector point of view, it's convinced it's just talked to Microsoft Graph and created a connection and schema. In reality, it talked to dev proxy, which simulated the answer, right? So here, if we look at this, you can see like we simulated the first part where we get a token, and then we connect to Microsoft Graph to create the connection, create a schema, and wait for it to be done. What's interesting is this part here, failure. Schema is missing the following semantic label, icon URL, right? So that's exactly the point where I said you need three labels for the content that you ingest to properly show up in Copilot for Microsoft 365. In our case, we only have two, title and the URL. We're missing the icon URL. And what's really cool is that we no longer need to guess. We no longer need to debug. Dev proxy shows us that in the context of our work. We get this tip like very much in our face. It's failure, right? So we can instantly see that there's a thing that we can improve to make the connector work better, right? So in our code, again, like we can include new property, map it to icon, retry it again, and then see if that will indeed address the issue that we've got. And in Proxy, we check for a few things, so we will not dive into the details there. But the key part for you to keep in mind is that we do these checks, right? So we try to help you as much as we can so that you get the confidence that the code you build is going to work with Copilot Microsoft 365 as intended, and you don't need to guess any of it, right? So the sample that you've seen is available to you here, right? So we will share the URL in a moment in a chat. You can get it from here and you can explore it. And then for developer proxy, let me open the preset there too, so that you will be able to test the connectors that you build, and again, like have the confidence, right? That the code you wrote is working as expected, right? So here we've got the simulate handling Teams admin center notification for graph connectors. And that preset includes everything from the ability for you to send a webhook as if you would do it in the Teams admin center. Because again, you've got the ability to deploy a connector as a Teams app so your admins can actually turn it on or off. Otherwise, you will have somebody have to, start a script or manually kick off the initial job. And when you deploy it as a Teams app, it would just show up in Teams admin center as an app from where the admin can turn it on or off. So this is really a great way. And the cool thing is Dev Proxy allows you to test all of that flow end to end. Again, also giving you the guidance, have you done everything right? Have you got all pieces right so that when you push that code to production, everything is going to work as intended? So I hope that that gives you a little bit of idea about the connectors, the benefit it give you, and really the power that you get with them to bring the external content that you use in your work to Microsoft 365, so that from a single place, you can ask anything that's related to your work and get a good answer based on the factual content that you use in your org. So with that, I'll give it back to Vesa. And again, thank you all. And if there's anything, feel free to ask in the chat.
Excellent. Thank you, Waldek, on that one. Really, really cool. Awesome stuff. And a good step-by-step clarification how things are working. We are right on the schedule. I can see Mark sharing the screen. And let's double check the audio.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yep, all good.
Awesome.
Take it away.
Everything's working. Thank you very much. So today I'm going to speak a little bit about how you can populate custom metadata on SharePoint Embedded using on files using AI processing. My name is Marc Windle. This is a continuation of the series we've been doing, kind of giving an overview of SharePoint Embedded. And today we're going to talk about that custom metadata. So just as an agenda, I'm going to kind of go through some slides, give you a little bit of theory, and then we'll look at some code and get our hands dirty. And then I've got a sample app running. Now, at a high level, what we're going to do here is show you how you can define columns and custom properties on containers, how you can use webhooks to process container changes, how you can use Azure AI document processing to extract fields, and then how you can save that metadata to files on your containers. So before I get into the details, though, if you haven't come across SharePoint Embedded, it is the fastest way to bring the power of M365 storage and all those capabilities to your custom application. At a high level, it's an API-only headless version of SharePoint that you can build your custom applications on top of. It gives you a custom dedicated partition in an M365 tenant, whether that's your own tenant or if you're making a multi-tenant application, your app can manage containers within that tenant. A whole bunch of capabilities come out of the box. Here are some of them. I'm not going to go over them all, but it kind of spread across several areas: content AI, security, collaboration, and core storage. Today, I'm going to focus on some of the core storage capabilities and specifically metadata. So how you can define a schema on the files you're going to store in a particular container, and how you can, set those fields on those files, and how you can kind of use that data. The short version too, like a container, is really the way to think about it is almost like a document library in SharePoint. It's a place to put files. Okay, so I just want to cover some of the new capabilities that we've shipped in the last month. We're still in public preview with SharePoint Embedded, but we're constantly putting out new features. And one of those is the ability to define a schema on a container and to be able to set those fields for the files that are in that container. And so the way to do it, if you've ever worked with SharePoint, it's kind of similar, but if you haven't, no big deal. On the left side, you can see a Postman request, and I'll show you this in action later. You can define the columns on a container using the /columns endpoint. Really straightforward. So if you've got a container, you can set some columns. There's a handful of column types that are supported, like text, Boolean, person or group, and so on. The full set is documented in our Postman collection and as well as our documentation. So if you go to ak.ms/spe-docs, you can take a look at that there. Once you've defined columns and you start kind of uploading files, you can set fields on those files. So fields are just like the values for those columns on a particular row or on a particular file in that container. And that's really easy to do. Once you can use the /listitem-/fields endpoint on a file, and I'll show you that. And you just provide a JSON object for the fields that you'd like to set. So really, really straightforward for that. And then once you have, your metadata set, you can do searching, filtering, and use that metadata to track state and kind of build your application. So that's metadata at a high level. Again, we'll see it in action in a sec. For webhooks now, I want to cover a little bit about webhooks. So Just like for drives in Microsoft Graph, once you create a container with SharePoint Embedded, you can treat it as a drive in Microsoft Graph. And that includes the ability to set up webhooks or subscriptions with notification and responders on that. So if you've ever used it for drives, awesome. If you haven't, it's really simple. You can create a subscription with the resource of that container. And then when anything changes on that container, your webhook responder will get notified. So your service, in this example that I've got, that I'll show you, I have a Azure function that is the service that will get the webhook call when anything changes on my drive. And also in this example, what I'm doing there is I'm processing using Azure AI document processing to extract fields from receipts. So that's this example, by the way, is published in our documentation. So if you go to ak.ms/spe-docs, you can go take a look at a handful of articles. And actually, what I'll do is go into demos here. We can pull that up. Let's just, I'll click on this actually. Looks like we're getting link verification. Okay. So this is overview, but if we go into concept or tutorials, I should say, there's an article on how you can use metadata with SharePoint Embedded containers, explains in detail everything that I just talked about here. There's an article for using webhooks and then also using document processing. So, and this is all backed by a sample that's in our open source sample app repository on GitHub. So I'm not going to go into all of the details on how you get it set up, but I do have it running. And for that, I just want to show you what that looks like. So this is the sample app. And right now I've got a handful of containers in here and some files in there. I already have a container in here called receipt processing. And I just wanted to show you what that looks like. So when I select it, you can see I've got this toggle on my containers so I can enable or disable receipt processing. So this one, it was already enabled and it already processed some receipts, but I'll try to do a live demo and hopefully everything works where I'll create a new container and start processing some receipts. So, but basically these are just some of my personal receipts. And then when you drop a file in here, an image or PDF or any other file type that's supported, it runs through that, a webhook. The webhook gets called and it will process the new items and use Azure AI document processing to extract fields and then set the metadata. So these are custom columns, merchant, total, and whether or not it's processed. I do have some other ones in there as well. So I'm going to try creating a container. And hopefully that works. We'll see. All right. So this is a brand new container. I'm going to put some files in here. And I haven't enabled. I'll just put the same files. So just throwing some images in here. And I will also enable receipt processing on here. And that takes a second. I think my sample app UI is not the best thing in the world, but there it is. And then I will go back. This is just my way of refreshing. So you can see here that it added these columns to this container. And these files don't have anything set yet because it's happening in the background. And I've also enabled receipt processing. So this should be working in the background to set it. While that's happening, I'm going to go show you some of the code that makes this happen. So this is the Azure function. You can see there's console logging happening there. So things are happening in the background. This is the Azure function. So this is actually the webhook responder. So on drive changed is how I respond to those, both the subscription requests as well as how I get notified when something changes in my particular drive. And so you have to respond with a validation token when you're setting up a subscription. So that's what this code is doing. And then I also have the drive ID baked into my notification URL, just a convenient way to have a very specific subscription for my drive ID. And then all I'm doing here is calling the process drive, and I do that asynchronously and respond back. And so process drive is just taking the drive ID, and I can take a look at that. all this process drive method is doing is just getting all of the unprocessed items. So what I'm actually doing there is using metadata on the files themselves to track whether or not they have been processed, and I mark them when they've done that. So I'm using a metadata, a Boolean metadata attribute to know whether or not I've actually run through and done this Azure AI processing on it or not. And then I process each item. And for that, without going into all of the code, the real heavy lifting happens by creating this Azure Doc Analysis Provider client, and then extracting the receipt fields, and then saving that on that drive item. So I'll go into that client now. We can take a look at that. The extract receipt fields, if you're kind of watching from home here and you're concerned about how difficult it might be, it is actually really straightforward to use Azure AI services with document processing to extract fields. And this is all the code that does it right here. So I instantiate a client using my credentials. So this is just a document analysis client. It's an NPM library. And then I call begin analyze document with this pre-built model that I'm using for receipts. You can obviously train your own or use a different model if you have a different use case. And then I extract the results here. And here are the fields that are coming from it. And then I return those fields. So it's not complicated. Again, you can check the open source sample to look at it, but really straightforward to extract, use Azure AI services to extract those results. And then I unfortunately don't have a receipt button or a refresh button, but let's see if my receipts have processed. You can see, yeah. So here's the new column, and you can see, like, for example, here's a parking receipt. It's been processed. So this all ran in the background. It extracted these fields. I parked at the Port of Seattle, and you can see this is just what the image looks like here. So it's doing a good job of extracting all of that content, all of those metadata, and I'm able to now set it on my container, and I can do searching, sorting, filtering, and other things, and obviously just tracking state in here in this custom metadata on a container. So that's it. That's it for my demo. Go check out how you can use custom metadata and custom properties on containers to be able to do this, and as well as some pretty cool stuff with Azure AI document processing.
Excellent. Thank you, Mark, on that one. Really, really cool. So simple. And like I said, it might look first glance complicated, but no, it's not. It's not. Now, from a timing perspective, let's then move into Daniel Laskewitz, who's here to talking about the Copilot Studio and what we can do with that.
In this video, I will show you how to extend Copilot for Microsoft 365 with prompt plugins in Copilot Studio. I will show you how to create a prompt plugin, how you can enable them, and how you can use them. Let's switch to my screen for a bit more information. There are multiple types of plugins for Copilot for Microsoft 365. On the screen are the Power Platform-based plugins listed. We have prompt plugins, conversational plugins, connector plugins, and Power Automate plugins. In this video, we are going to focus on the prompt plugins. Prompt plugins are really useful when you want to, for instance, generate content with the AI and get some response from the AI. A couple of examples that you can use is summarizing a long text and extracting bullet points, tasks, or other useful content. Another example is creating a prompt that helps to moderate user-generated content. How do you develop your own prompt plugin? First, you need to make sure that a couple of prerequisites are already filled. The first one is to have a Copilot for Microsoft 365 license, because you need that if you want to use prompt plugins in Copilot for Microsoft 365. Another one is that you need to be part of the preview of the plugins in Copilot for Microsoft 365. And then, when all that is finished, we have to deploy the Copilot Studio integrated app. You need to go to Microsoft Admin Center. You need to go to Settings, Integrated Apps, and Available Apps to search for Copilot Studio. You will see two apps in there. One of them is also for Copilot for Microsoft 365, and the other one is just for Teams. Make sure to enable the one that is for Copilot for Microsoft 365. Next, you want to create your prompt plugin. So you need to give the plugin a name and add one or more dynamic content fields. Next, you can test your prompt plugin, and you can do that inside of the prompt builder that you use to create your own plugin. Next, you also want to share your prompt plugin, because maybe whenever you have tried it out already and you're happy with it, you want other coworkers to also use your prompt plugin. You can do that through the sharing menu. And last but not least, you want to use your prompt plugin in Copilot for Microsoft 365. So make sure to open the Copilot app in Teams, open the plugin flyout, and enable the prompt plugin that you created under the Copilot Studio header. When you create your prompt plugin, you have to start by going to Copilot Studio, add an AI plugin. The top option, generate content or extract insights, is the one you want to choose. And then you will see the prompt builder. That's where you can write your prompt. When you're done with that, you also want to share it, and that's where you can share it. Let's go into the demo and show you how to create a prompt plugin. Let's create our first prompt plugin. I'm already in Copilot Studio, where I selected plugins in the menu. Here we can create a new AI plugin, and that will open a menu where we can choose which type of plugin we want to create. We'll go for the top one because that's the prompt plugin. When I select that, I get to see the prompt builder. And this is where I can name my prompt or where I can write my prompt. I can also test it over here when I am done creating my prompt. So let's go to the next page where we already have a prompt available in the sample solution gallery. This is a website where you can find a whole lot of prompts, and I'll share the link in the description below. But in this case, we are going to click View on GitHub. Here we can find our prompt, and I can just copy the whole text. When I go back to the plugins overview, I can give it a name, language detection, and I can paste my prompt here. You will immediately see the yellow bar at the top that states that your prompt must have at least one dynamic value. And that's because there is no dynamic value currently here. If I want to change this, I can select the placeholder. I can add a dynamic value, and I can make this a little bit more pretty and hit enter. And that will save my dynamic value. I also need to do a little bit with spacing because there was a little bit of a spacing issue in this prompt. But now I'm really happy with what is in this prompt. So what I can see here is, for instance, if I use the phrase I have a dog, it will return EN instead of English US. It will just detect the language. So let's try that out and use that same sentence. I have a dog. Let's click on test prompt and see what will come out of it. And it says EN. But this is already in the prompt. So why don't we try something a little bit more difficult? And I'm going to use Ik ben Daniel. And that's in Dutch, I am Daniel. And that's my name. So let's test this prompt and see what happens. And it responds with NL for the Netherlands or the Dutch language. So I think this is working pretty good. So let's save this custom prompt. And that will mean that this prompt plugin will already be available within Copilot for Microsoft 365 for me. It's saving it now, and after it's done saving, I can try it out. So let's wait a little bit and go to Teams right after. Here we are in Teams. I already opened Copilot. I can click on the icon here and I can select the plugin menu here. Here I have a bunch of plugins available. For now, we're going to use Copilot Studio. And when I open it up, I can see a whole bunch of different plugins. We're not going to use IT Expert. We're going to scroll down a little bit because I need to select the one that we just created. So here we are, language detection. I'm going to enable this one. And here I want to trigger the plugin. So let's try this out. Can you detect the language of the following text? And let's use quotes here. Ik ben Daniel en ik ben senior cloud advocate bij Microsoft. This means I am Daniel and I am a senior cloud advocate at Microsoft. Let's see what happens when I send this. Copilot is currently thinking because it's looking at all the different plugins that are available in this environment. And it will look at the input text that I used. And it will try to match that together with the plugins that are available. I already enabled developer mode, and this is because I want to show you that it's really triggering the right prompt. And here it says, the language of the text, ik ben Daniel en ik ben Senior Cloud Advocate by Microsoft, is Dutch. And here we can see that there are only one enabled plugin. There's a match plugin. Here it says that the selected function for the execution is also language detection. And here it also has the function execution details. And it shows that it was a success. So here we can see that Copilot for Microsoft 365 can really easily use those prompt plugins and enable you to do certain things that you normally couldn't. Let's end up with some resources. The first link here, aka.ms/Copilot Studio/Copilot plugins, will show you the prerequisites for plugins. So this will show you what you need before you can get started with the plugins. There's also a create a prompt link, aka.ms/Copilot Studio/create prompts, and that will guide you through how to create a prompt. And lastly, we also have the Power Platform prompts, the examples that I showed in this video, and you can find them at aka.ms/power-prompts. Thanks for watching this video, and remember, the links are in the description below.
Cool, excellent. Thank you. Thank you for that one, Daniel. Really, really cool. And it's so easy to build those things within a Copilot Studio, and it gets better and better every single day as well. So there's a lot of new features coming up on that side as well, making more capabilities available. But these demo cards were not on our site this time, but it's okay. These things do happen. At least we were able to show how configuration can be done for sure. So thank you, Waldek. Thank you, Marc. Thank you, Daniel, for the great demos of today. Really cool to see that stuff live and how things are actually working. And then I would like to move forward on the slides. So next week, we'll have Nicole Woon and Harham. They are joining us to talking about the SharePoint Web UI Kit. There has been quite a few updates on that one. So it can be used to design cool-looking portals and help designers to be more productive. Then Akansha and Abhi is going to talk about enterprise administration, security, and compliance with SharePoint Embedded, continuing that series. And then Paolo Pialorsi is here talking about creating Copilot for Microsoft 365 plugin with Copilot Studio. So just continuing this discussion within the Copilot Studio side as well. That's on 2nd of April, on next week from now, from Tuesday. Now, in the meantime, you are more than welcome on joining the other people in the community within the multiple locations. What we have, one of the new locations based on the requests and from the community is our Discord server, which seems to be really, really, really popular. It is already 1800. Sorry, it's a bit of a difference on thousands and hundreds, but still. So 1800 81 is actually the current number. So it's actually growing really, really fast. And it's nice to see the people helping there with other people in the community for questions. We also are always asking feedback around these sessions. So please fill in the form so we're able to collect some input and feedback and suggestions from your side. So we're able to also continue doing these shows in the future. That is our intention. But obviously, it's highly dependent on the feedback and do you like these kind of calls happening consistency? And also, if you have ideas on how to adjust or improve, that is always welcome. Now, the recording will be available within 24 hours in our YouTube channel and AKMS community videos. I will need to get rid of those snowflakes. It's not relevant anymore in the spring. So that's one thing to get clear on the slides. But please subscribe on that YouTube channel. Easiest way to stay up to date on when the recording is available. Twitter, LinkedIn, both are locations where we're sharing always when the recordings are available and other updates. And the next call is on April 2nd. And all community call invites at AKMS community call /calls. Next Thursday this week is one of those calls where the time zones might have actually changed the timing within your calendar. If you have downloaded the recurrent invite, it is on the right and correct time. And starting from next week, Europe and US are again in the same summertime approach. So then the meetings are aligning properly like normally in Thursdays as well. Anyway, thanks everybody for joining. Thank you for the interactive chat as well. That's always nice to see. A lot of questions and answers on that side. That is the intention of this calls as well. And see you on the next call. Have a great rest of the week. Let's stay in touch. Bye-bye.